be very much a home bird. Always never really had the passion or the desire to leave Donegal for forever. I always would have seen myself residing in Donegal, and I think part of it is from where I'm from. I'm from a beautiful heritage town in southwest Donegal, Ardra. It's renowned for its music and dance. And culture. It's also renowned for tweed. So it's very much in that ingrained heritage that we've seen in Donegal. So that probably instilled in me growing up a love for Donegal. This was normal, the environment you only can see, we know how beautiful Donegal is to look at. So I was involved in Irish dance my whole life. It was, very much part of me as a person, a lot of friends. It was something that you done locally. And then I went to university in the north in Coleraine. And as Mary had pointed out, I went to study, thinking I was going to study linguistics, computing and Japanese. And then I got the call, very, very fortunate to get the call to go to Riverdance and landed in Japan. Very quickly, I realized that maybe Japanese wasn't the language for me when I could barely say konnichiwa within the first 2 weeks. So I was very, very fortunate then for a number of years to travel Europe and Asia with a show. And really, it was amazing that John and Moya had that creativity and suppose took the risk to be able to do that. And this was something that would never have been possible for Irish dancers growing up. You might have competed competitively, but that was it. There was never that opportunity to grow that. And then I returned to study international business. So I completely changed. And part of that was from traveling internationally. I became really interested in the world of business on the international scale, and also seeing how a business actually operated, and particularly that creative business in what Riverdance was doing. And when Moya was talking there, I remember when we went to China, and we, along with the Chieftains, were the only Western shows that were ever allowed to perform in the Great Hall in China. And often amazed me to think that these were two Irish productions, two very much that showcased Irish culture, yet they were being showcased in the Great Hall in China, which culture obviously is very, very different. So yeah, I went to university in the north, and in the hope of returning home. So I taught in both the University of Ulster and DCU, and I was so fortunate then to be able to get a job in what was LYIT and now ATU in Donegal. And from the number of places that I've worked in, I just fell in love with LYIT, which is now ATU, when I did arrive there. And part of that, I suppose, in our Department of Business, there was that love for what we represent, the brand that we represent, which was Donegal. And there is a great affection for local businesses, and we'd work very, very closely. Our Department of Business Studies and indeed our Faculty of Business would be very closely engaged with the local businesses, and that's really what really drew me to the.
So the ATU is the Atlantic Technical University.
Yes.
That's for everyone who's not from Donegal. So that is amazing. And we met a number of the people there when we were at the MIT Emerging Tech Udor, and the infrastructure and the passion of the vision of the future was just really impressive. But I want to talk to you a little bit about how being a dancer and then going into languages and computer science. I have a software company, and I always hire people who are based in the arts, music, dance, filmmaking, because there's something about that storytelling, whether it's digital, tell a story, and then also with the math. All dancers are mathematicians, they count and they know geometry. How you had your PhD in gaming, is that what you chose to do? And then I would love to talk about how that investigation of going through the world, coming back to Donegal, and then really settling on a specialty on promoting the very beginning of entrepreneurship, studying that process. So that's a long ask, from your process as an artist to computer scientist to then getting into the spark or the germination of building a startup.
I think that, as I said, from my background in the community I was reared in, so the external community had a huge impact on me growing up. So I think that the creativity was always instilled in it. I have a brother that has an MA in fine art and philosophy. So I think that our local community instilled that love for creativity. So when I was studying then my master's in international business, one of the modules I did study was entrepreneurship. And that really ignited something in me. And then when I followed on to do my PhD immediately after that, the industry that I was looking at the formation, so how people come together to start a business. So I was looking at the teams and the skills and resources and how they came together. And networking was obviously a huge part of that. But part of it, we were going to look at computer software. And within that, I said, that's a very vast industry. I would love to look at something that's more creative. Creative within that to me was the video games industry. And I felt that when I went to study those startups, I felt I had affiliation with them and a connection with them because they are very creative. And indeed, they are telling stories. So obviously they're business people first and foremost because they have to be to start the business. But when you remove that, they're actually the furthest removed from business people. It's all about that creativity. It's a passion to build something, not maybe driven financially, but to produce something that is fantastic, that is creative, that is, that brings that love, that storytelling, that imagery to other people. So I felt that when I went to talk to them and, like that, people would you give them a bit of your bio. So when they knew then that I had that, suppose that I had danced for a number of years, I think I had that affiliation with them. And when I went to interview these people, I mean, it was UK, Ireland, it was America, it was Finland. I think straight away I had a rapport with them. We had an understanding of it. And I don't think, in the creative arts, sometimes when you look at some of the policy makers and some of the funders, they don't sometimes get creativity. And that's one of the major barriers they come up with. And I think they spoke to me so openly because I got them, because I could feel that affiliation, because that was me, that was my home life. That's the way I was reared. That was my community. So I felt that really I could get them. And then in terms of Donegal, what we're doing now at ATU, when I came to work in Donegal, we already had the co-lab. So the very much that for anybody that's not familiar with ATU Donegal, we have an incubator centre on campus, and we have, I think, over 50 startups on campus. So also, as I said, we're very engaged with our local ecosystem, with our local entrepreneurial ecosystem. And that would be a key strategy within the Faculty of Business, within ATU Donegal. We now have a DICE Academy, Design, Innovation, Creativity and Enterprise, where we feel it's, one of our roles as an educator within the community to help people that have an interest in design, creativity, to help them in terms of startup. And even most recently, we've revalidated all our programs, and indeed innovation and creativity are some of the very core modules that sit across indeed all our undergraduates and postgraduate programs. So we're very much aware of our region and the importance of being instigators and helping learners on a journey should starting their own business be the way forward.
It's very interesting what you're saying, because I had an arts background, then went into corporate America, and I used to hide my below the 14th Street arts background, and I used to basically bring that with me and just not ever let them know I was at PS1 or the Atlantic Theater Company or any of that. But it was the secret to success, because the storytelling, the arc, and I think there's also for the startup, they have an idea, but they don't know how to get to the process of it. And any artist will have an idea, but the real art is how to execute it. Artists just don't sit and conceptualize. Artists are engineers. They have to figure it out. So to go from a level, and you're starting in middle school, what we would call high school, correct?
Yes.
And then university, just because you just were awarded a major grant from the new Foundation Shared Initiative Island to pursue this more. This process is really, really innovative, because surround it with the creativity in Donegal, with, you know, especially with Eileen down the street,
Mm-hmm.
using her studio once it's built, and getting people a more of a successful arc towards actual execution of their creative design or startup is something that is like definitely a secret sauce.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said, yeah, you're right. We're studying some research now in the middle schools or second level, as we'd see here. And what we often find is that by the time students enter third level, you know, they mightn't be considering startup or entrepreneurship as a career path. So what we were looking at is researching at that middle level. Where are they in terms of creativity? And, you know, there's areas that need to be reviewed there in terms of policy and seeing that. And when I look at only my local area, for years when I was growing up, you know, the tweed industry, you know, those creative, the handcrafters, those were the small businesses that kept our towns thriving. And I think for a while we might have moved away from that part, might have been around through globalizations, but we are seeing more and more of that coming back. And I think it's so important for us now to support that, because as we've seen with COVID, as we've seen often, and I've seen it come up in some of the content, the messages that are coming through there, sometimes Donegal is seen as the forgotten county, where, you know, we're a border region, we're far removed from, you know, the urban areas of Dublin. And sometimes we've had to tap into what and who we are. And very often that's the creativity, what we see in our land, what we see in our landscape, what are natural resources there, you know, our very vibrant culture. And I think what will keep Donegal pushing forward is investing in that creativity. And as Moya said, in that sustainable way, and the local businesses. I think that's really where we need to keep pushing forward and kind of encouraging policymakers in that way.